What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Footy with an Edge. We spent a lot of time this week analyzing Victor Osimhen's game and trying to determine if he fits into Man United or even Chelsea. And my verdict was that he doesn't really fit into Ten Hag's system for various reasons, but that he could fit into Chelsea. Please check out those videos if you're interested in my reasoning behind those recommendations, links in the description below. In the Osimhen to United video, I mentioned how there are several other options out there that fit Ten Hag's system better. So that's exactly what we're here to do today. We're going to analyze 6 strikers that include some popular names like Kane and Kolo Muani, and some under the radar names that I guarantee will take you by surprise. As always, please drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy, and don't forget to turn on all notifications to never miss out on content just like this. Now, as we know from analyzing Ten Hag's system all season, he likes to play a 3-3-1-3 in possession, where the striker is expected to help out in the initial phases of build-up play by dropping deep at times to offer an extra passing option in midfield, and in doing so, pull out the opposition defenders to make space for the wide players to run in behind. And of course, as the play develops and all of our players are in and around the box, to finish off the chances that present themselves, right? Because maybe Rashford or Bruno or Anthony, anyone could have a chance at the edge of the box that they cut it back and they need someone in a central area to finish their chances. And out of possession, Ten Hag wants his striker to put pressure on the ball carriers, specifically the center backs, full backs, or defensive midfielders like we've seen Weghorst do since he joined in January. So in order to determine the best striker for Ten Hag's system, we're going to put our 6 strikers through 4 separate categories. The first one is attacking stats in terms of how good they are at creating things for their teammates. The second is defensive contribution, so how hard they're willing to work off the ball. The third is injury history, because we're not interested in another Anthony Martial at this club. Number 4 is the price tag, because United are notoriously bad at overpaying for players that are linked to us, and as fans that care about this club, we're tired of watching the Glazers waste money on crap players and then say, oh, we've spent a lot of money. So let's get straight into it, starting with the striker that most people probably want next season, outside of Osimhen, of course, in Kane. So without a doubt, Kane is having an amazing season this year with 21 goals and 2 assists in 28 Premier League games. And if it wasn't for that Norwegian monster at Man City, he would be on track to winning the Premier League Golden Boot and maybe even Player of the Season, because with 10 games to go, he could still get to 30 league goals. But what do the underlying stats say about him? Is he the type of player that would flourish under Ten Hag? Let's take a look, starting with the attacking stats. So we're going to look at the following 5 metrics for all 6 players, which is key passes to see how often a player plays the pass before a shot, progressive passes to see how often a player drops deep and passes forward, through balls to see how often a player plays the ball into open space behind defenders, crosses to see how often they get into the wide areas to play the ball in instead of shooting, and finally, shot creating actions, which will give us an overall picture of their creativity. And pretty much to nobody's surprise, Kane ranks highly across all of these stats. And the 2 stats in particular that Ten Hag will absolutely love are Kane's 4.73 progressive passes per 90 and 0.42 through balls per 90. Because this is him dropping deep into these areas in midfield, holding up the ball and playing the balls in behind to the likes of Heung-min Son, Lucas Moura, and Kulusevski. And looks like he's not afraid to move into the channels and put in some crosses either when the opportunity presents himself. So overall, Kane is almost the perfect striker for Erik ten Hag in possession, and we're actually going to use his offensive stats at least as a benchmark throughout the rest of this video. Now let's look at his defensive stats. So defensively, we're going to look at 3 stats in particular to get an understanding of a player's defensive contributions. Tackles won in the attacking third, so in this area of the pitch, tackles won in the middle third, so this area of the pitch, and interceptions. Combined, these should give us an idea of how often these players attempt to win the ball back out of possession. And Kane is definitely not the best in the world at this based on his stats, especially considering the fact that Conte's Tottenham side counterattack a lot. But given that this won't be what Kane is mainly asked to do if he comes to Man United, I may be willing to overlook this aspect of his game as long as he passes in flying colors elsewhere. Next, let's look at his injury history. Kane's actually been pretty good with injuries, because he hasn't missed a single game, believe it or not, since April 2021, which is almost 2 years ago. Now, this is definitely a good sign, but I do have some concerns here. In the last 9 seasons, including this one, Kane has played an average of 3,647 minutes for Tottenham in all competitions, which is about 40 full 90-minute games per season. And that doesn't even include the 81 caps that he has for England. So there's every chance that he starts to become injury prone in the coming seasons, even though he doesn't have any injuries in his recent history. Look, he's definitely a model professional that takes care of himself, and I'm definitely not a sports scientist or physiotherapist, so I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt here, but I just want you guys to know my concerns. Moving on to his price tag. Transfermarkt currently lists his market value at about 90 million euros, but despite his contract expiring in just one season, Daniel Levy will definitely want at least 100 million, if not more, for Harry Kane in the summer. So the bottom line on Kane is that he's definitely the benchmark for a Erik ten Hag striker at Man United. I think he's a striker that can actually get you lots of goals without sacrificing the output of players around him, because his decision making is elite. If he sees a teammate in a better position, he will pass it, unlike someone like Antony or Rashford. I'd absolutely love him at Man United next season, but I'm hesitant because something isn't just right about paying 100 million or more for a 30-year-old striker. But hey, if money is no obstacle under the Qataris or Sir Jim, let's get Harry Kane, because I can see us getting 2 or 3 great seasons out of him and maybe win something big. Next, let's talk about Randal Kolo Muani from Eintracht Frankfurt in the Bundesliga. Randal Kolo Muani has been having an amazing breakout season at Eintracht Frankfurt with 11 goals and 12 assists in just 24 Bundesliga appearances. I think most of you might recognize him from the World Cup final where he missed that last-minute shot against Emiliano Martinez in the dying minutes of extra time. But with a goal or assist every 85 minutes in the Bundesliga as a 24-year-old, we have to take a look at this guy because he could be the next big thing in European football. Starting with his attacking stats, he doesn't seem to have the same overall profile as Harry Kane because his progressive passes and through balls are very low in comparison, but he does have good numbers for key passes, crosses, and shot creating actions, which tells me he does have the ability to create stuff in the final third. And this is backed up by the fact that he actually has 12 assists this season, which is one more than the 11 goals that he has. And his defensive stats are much better than Kane, as his tackles and interceptions per 90 are at least 50% higher, but he's definitely not the best in the world at pressing from the front. In terms of injury history, it's pretty clean for Kolo Muani because he's missed just 2 days of action due to a knock this season and 2 months due to a calf injury in 2021. And when we get to his price tag, maybe there's some concerns here because Transfermarkt does value him at 37 million euros, but with him being a 24-year-old with 4 years left on his contract, I think we'll have to pay at least 80 to 100 million to get this guy out of Frankfurt, especially because he's a France international who already plays for the national team very regularly, so I'm not expecting a bargain here. So the bottom line on Kolo Muani is that even though he may not be the perfect fit for Erik ten Hag's system, by no means is he a selfish striker. He has 12 assists this season to prove that, and there's an added benefit to getting him at Man United because he can definitely play all across the front line, so he can interchange with Rashford or Antony whenever it's needed, and this is something that Kane doesn't necessarily provide. So next, let's talk about our main man, RAFAEL LEAO. Much like Kolo Muani, RAFAEL LEAO is another young forward who has been making waves in recent seasons. He has 8 goals and 7 assists in 25 league appearances for AC Milan, which comes on the back of a Scudetto winning season in which he got 11 goals and 10 assists in the Serie A. I think this kid is truly something special, and much like Kolo Muani, he could be at the upper echelon of strikers in European football for many seasons to come. So we have to consider him as a Man United target. Starting with his attacking stats, on the surface, it doesn't look like LEAO is better than Kane or Kolo Muani at creating stuff for his teammates, but that's because there's a problem with these stats. FBref calculates percentile statistics based on different categories of players. So they'll compare center backs to center backs, midfielders to midfielders, wingers to wingers, and so on. So according to them, Kane and Kolo Muani count as forwards, so their stats are compared against all forwards in Europe's top 5 leagues. But LEAO is actually considered an attacking midfielder or winger, so he's not being considered in the same statistical category as Kane or Kolo Muani. So to correct this, let's bring in Kane and Kolo Muani's stats side by side to see how good LEAO would be if he was considered a forward. And the difference is night and day. LEAO has almost 2 key passes per 90, which is 33% higher than Kane. He has 2.5 crosses per 90, which is double that of Kane and almost triple that of Kolo Muani. And he has more shot creating actions than Kane, mostly owing to the fact that he's much better on one-on-one situations. And even for progressive passes and through balls, he isn't a million miles away from Harry Kane. Now, before we move on to defensive stats, please smash a like on the video if you appreciate the level of detail that's gone into making this video, because it would be very easy for anyone to dismiss LEAO as not a creative player by looking at these stats. But on this channel, we take a step further to make sure that these stats are painting an accurate picture. So please smash that like button. Now defensively, unfortunately, there's no hidden stats for LEAO, as he doesn't seem to do much outside of his interceptions being almost twice as high as Kolo Muani. So let's move straight to his injury history. LEAO has been relatively blessed in terms of injuries, as he's only missed 5 league games since April 2021, which is almost 2 years ago. I don't think we have to worry about anything in terms of fitness with Leao, so let's talk about his price tag. Now, this is where things get really interesting because he's 23, valued at 80 million euros, but he has only 1 year left on his contract. So this means that potentially we could get this guy anywhere between 80 to 100 million. And I know that's not necessarily a bargain in the big scheme of things, but if this guy had 2, 3, or 4 years left on his contract, he would cost at least 150 million, if not more. So the bottom line with Leao is he's a special player, and like Kolo Muani, he can probably play anywhere across the front line, which gives Ten Hag a lot of options. So if I was to spend 80 to 100 million on any player, it would definitely be Leao. This guy is a star in the making and will be adding to that Portuguese connection with Bruno Fernandes and Diogo Dalot already in the squad. So I don't know if any of you have Altani's number because someone needs to tell him about Leao's contract situation in the summer. Next, we have 3 under the radar players to round off the video, and I'm pretty sure you'll be surprised by some of these names. We start with Niklas Füllkrug, a German striker who plays for Werder Bremen in the Bundesliga. He has 15 goals and 5 assists in 24 Bundesliga appearances this season, and he's almost single-handedly keeping his club afloat. Now, some of you might have seen him at the World Cup in the group stages against Spain when he came on as a substitute and got Germany the draw in their second group stage game. And I actually wanted United to sign this guy in the January transfer window instead of getting Weghorst, but obviously we didn't. Let's look at his underlying stats to see if he'd be a good fit for Ten Hag. From an attacking perspective, looks like he has a slightly lower output than Kane at key passes and progressive passes, but his through balls, crosses, and shot creating actions are not that great. But it is important to remember that he currently plays for a mid-table side in the Bundesliga, so his play style for them is going to be very different. I think if he played for a much better side like United, who have most of the ball in most games, he has potential to look a lot better. In terms of defensive stats, again, there's nothing special here, so let's move straight on to injury history. And Füllkrug is pretty good with injuries. Since April 2021, he has only missed 1 game for Werder Bremen, which is pretty impressive for a 30-year-old. And when we get to his price tag, this is where things get very interesting for Füllkrug, because his market value is just 10 million euros according to Transfermarkt, which means we could get him for somewhere around 20 million euros. So the bottom line with Füllkrug is that for that price, he's an absolute steal. He can give us everything that Weghorst gives us right now, but also finish off the chances that he gets. I think people need to realize that to sign Weghorst next season, Burnley will want some money from us since they paid around 17 or 18 million for him just 2 years ago. I'd imagine they'd ask us for 20 million or more, especially since he's played with us for 6 months. So if it's a question of signing Weghorst or Füllkrug, it's Füllkrug all the way, baby. Next, we have a name that nobody will have heard of, and it's a 25-year-old Frenchman named Ludovic Blas, who plays for FC Nantes in Ligue 1. With just 8 goal contributions in 27 league appearances this season, I know what you may be thinking. Who is this unknown guy and why should I care about him? I promise you, stick with me for the next couple of minutes and you might just be convinced. When we look at his attacking stats, he's better than all 4 players we've looked at before him, except for Leao, who has more key passes and shot creating actions per 90. Now, I know that he plays as a winger, but he has played through the middle for Nantes this season. I think he could do this for Ten Hag as well. The numbers will definitely drop off at least a little in going from Ligue 1 to the Premier League, but this guy fits the profile of a no ego, hard-working player that will give everything for the shirt both on and off the ball. And we can back up the off-the-ball claims by looking at his defensive stats, because he's in the 93rd percentile for tackles attempted in the middle third of the pitch right here, and in the 98th percentile for interceptions per 90. So if that doesn't scream works hard off the ball, then I don't know what does. In terms of injuries, he's only had 2 minor ones that kept him out for 2 to 3 weeks in the last 5 years, so there's no concerns with fitness here. And he's only valued at 15 million euros by Transfermarkt with just 1 year left on his contract, so we could get him for as little as 10 or 20 million euros. I think the bottom line with this guy is that he'll be a great backup winger or striker for us, and if we let go of both Martial and Weghorst, maybe this guy is a good cheap addition to the forward line. And last but definitely not the least, we have another young Frenchman from Ligue 1 named Amine Gouiri. He has 9 goals and 2 assists in 23 appearances for Stade Rennais this season and definitely has a very interesting profile for Erik ten Hag and Manchester United. His key passes, crosses, and shot creating actions are pretty close to Harry Kane, while the other stats are lacking a little in comparison. But he's doing these things for a side that's 5th in Ligue 1, which is pretty impressive considering he starts almost every game for them. And defensively is where he stands out, because he's played 18 out of his 23 games through the middle, and he's in the 85th percentile among European forwards for tackles in the final third and in the 83rd percentile for interceptions. This guy clearly works hard off the ball while also being very capable in possession, and I think Erik ten Hag would absolutely love a striker with this type of profile. In terms of injuries too, he's squeaky clean except for an ACL injury he had 5 years ago, and while that might be concerning for some people, he's gone on to miss exactly 0 games in the 5 years since. So unless a medical professional evaluates him and says no, I'm good to go with this guy. Now his contract situation is a little tricky from a United perspective because he's just 23, he has 4 years left on his contract, and he's currently valued at 38 million euros. I think Rennais won't sell him for anything less than 50 to 60 million, so United will definitely have to watch out for the price. And look, I know you guys may not agree with me, but this guy suits Ten Hag's system just like Füllkrug or Blas does. But he has something that neither of them do because his ceiling is much higher than Füllkrug due to his age, and he's more proven through the middle than Blas is because that is his main position. If we can sell Martial for 15 to 20 million and offload his 250,000 per week wages, that will pay for more than half of the 60 million that it might cost to get someone like Gouiri in the door. And then we can move our focus towards getting a solid midfield partner for someone like Casemiro. In closing thoughts, I have 3 suggestions to the Man United board regarding our forward line this summer. 1. Sell Martial and don't re-sign Wout Weghorst. I think Martial is literally made of glass and we shouldn't be spending 250k a week on someone that can't even play 1,000 minutes every season. Get rid. With Weghorst, I really appreciate how hard he works and how important he's been for this team since he joined in January, but I just don't think he's good enough to spend 20 million plus on. 2, I'd say buy one of Leao or Gouiri this summer. If money is no object and maybe Sir Jim or the Qataris are trying to make a statement, buy Leao. He's a generational talent that will add a ton of quality to our forward line, and if money is an object, which it most likely will be, replace Martial with Gouiri, who is a great young talent himself. And my 3rd and final suggestion would be to sign Nicholas Füllkrug no matter what. He's a highly underrated striker that's available for 15 to 20 million, and he can be a great backup to someone like Gouiri or Leao, especially if we're going to be in 4 competitions next season as well. Given that the Glazers will likely drag their feet with the sale of the club, we should probably just get Füllkrug in through the door for a cheap amount and focus on signing a top midfielder instead. So that wraps up our video. I think we should get Füllkrug and one of Gouiri or Leao. What did you guys think? Did you like the names I selected? Did you like my selection criteria? Get in the comments with your thoughts because I'm really interested in who you liked and who you didn't. Also, let me know if there's someone you think that I missed from my list. And like I just said, we need a midfielder in this team too. So very soon I'm going to be coming out with a video looking at the top midfielders that we should sign in the summer. Thank you guys for watching. Like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed. And don't forget to turn on your bell notifications to never miss out on content just like this.